Today you've joined hundreds of established and emerging writers who are discovering ways to reach their writing goals and have fun by being more curious, creative, and productive. You're listening to Ann Croker, Writing Coach. This is episode 154. In a world of author branding, be consistent at your core. Last time we talked about having a playground, a place to relax and try new things, a place where you can experiment and be a little messy until you figure out how you want to use that space. At the same time, be consistent at your core. Not that you look exactly the same everywhere you go. I mean, that's not even realistic. Think about it in practical terms. Sometimes you'll be speaking at a conference and dressed up in a professional outfit, while other times you'll be doing a live video feed while walking your dog. It's appropriate and expected to literally look different and to exude a different tone in one space versus another. But somehow I should have no question I'm listening to the same person. Everywhere I encounter you, online, at a conference, or in line at Starbucks, I should sense that you are essentially the same. Whether you're dressed in your best suit for a photo shoot or sitting around a campfire roasting marshmallows with friends, be the same core you. Maintain consistency in content, too, to avoid blindsiding readers. Now, that doesn't mean you write the exact same subject using different examples over and over. That would get boring and tedious. Instead, write under the broader themes you're known to explore. If you're a lifestyle blogger, you might have a few subtopics you write about: travel, photography, food, and let's say you write about those things with a frugality focus. Money-saving travel tips, how to get the most out of your DSLR, meal planning on a budget. Readers love your articles. You're saving them money, and you're a little bit sassy when introducing a product or destination, and they follow you for updates. If you suddenly start writing about politics in a cynical tone, your audience will wonder what's going on. You don't sound like you, and you're not delivering them subject matter they've expected from you. Now, you're free to write whatever you want, and you may choose to leverage your platform for a higher purpose. Just keep your audience in mind, your readers. Why do they come to you? If you're the frugal travel blogger and suddenly you start spotlighting luxury hotels that cost $600 a night, and you start tossing French phrases around as if you're wearing a beret and drinking champagne, readers who've appreciated your tips on backpacking across Europe or choosing the best hostel will feel like your content really isn't for them any longer. But let's say you won a luxury trip where your hotels would have cost $600 a night. Your readers might enjoy seeing frugal you marveling at resort living. You could position the luxury outing as budget traveler stumbles into Wonderland. If someone comes to my website or listens to my podcast week after week expecting something related to writing encouragement, instruction, or inspiration, they'd feel confused if I suddenly offer a clinic on tree trimming. I might be an amateur arborist, perfectly capable of leading a clinic on tree trimming. But my readers would be scratching their heads. That's weird. I come to Ann for writing input, not tree trimming advice. If, however, a big part of my brand was sharing stories from my personal life, well, then maybe my readers already knew that I was an amateur arborist. So then if a comment shows up on social media about my recent neighborhood tree trimming seminar, that wouldn't be a total shock. I'm not an amateur arborist, for the record, so don't ask me for tips, but I do make excellent steel-cut oats. And if you ever want to know my secret, the instructions do still live on this website. Readers who encounter your words on a page or your images on Instagram or your remarks in a tweet or your interview on a podcast should not be shocked by a huge surprise that's incongruent with who you are and what you stand for. Your message should be relatively consistent. If I ever do write about trees, I like to think I could do so in maybe a literary style or with some purpose, which I did once when I talked about platform. I'll give you the link. But you can get creative and weave subject matter into your brand in clever ways if you think about a connection to your core self. Another way to remain consistent at your core is to maintain your language. If you're extremely casual, avoid suddenly speaking in a formal academic tone, and vice versa, because that wouldn't sound like you any longer. If you don't use crass language as part of your online persona in general, you wouldn't want to show up in a space tossing out stories peppered with four-letter words. That would sound strange and uncomfortable to a visitor who hasn't heard you talk like that. Pat Flynn of Smart Passive Income, for example, says he avoids using that kind of language because a lot of his podcast listeners tune in while they're driving their kids to and from school. He wants them to trust him not to use language that they're dialing down for their kids. He asks the people he interviews to honor this, too. But Gary Vaynerchuk, he's known for his strong language. It's part of his core brand. So much so, in fact, people might be surprised if they visited Gary's Instagram feed and he wasn't swearing, at least occasionally, in his stories. Readers can recognize you from your style, your topics, your tone, and your way of seeing the world. When you veer too far from the core you, friends and followers will let you know. That doesn't sound like you, they'll say. They might frown. They might shake their heads. That's how you'll know that your tone or your content is off. Avoid jolting your reader, listener, follower, or friend. Be consistently you everywhere, in both your formal and informal places, in both your professional spaces and playground platforms. Stay true to the core of you. I'm Ann Croker, cheering you on as a writing coach in your ear, everywhere we may meet. At my website, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, in your inbox, here on this podcast, over at Patreon, or even in person. I'm always looking for ideas to share with you that will help you achieve your writing goals and have fun by being more curious, creative, and productive. Thank you for listening.